Okay, we're continuing with the Hidden History of Science by me, Pete Rogers. This is part 6. We're talking about how science developed. And here's Roger Bacon, and he was a Franciscan monk, a genius polymath, and he was promoting the development of the modern scientific method, okay? And using experimental experiments, empirical study. Okay, now here's a picture of Notre Dame Cathedral, and they built this in the 1100s. It's an incredible thing. Up until 1900, people all over the world were living in mud huts. Okay, that's another thing too. I'm making the point here. Science came from the Roman Catholic Church in Europe. It did not come from anywhere else. Because all the time people tell me, oh, well, such and such a country did this or that. And I'm like, look, the people in that country were living in mud huts. They didn't do very much. Okay? The Catholic Church built up an educated clergy, educated in Latin, and they hired craftsmen to build these incredible buildings. Their architecture, they're building Notre Dame Cathedral in the 1100s. Okay, all over the world, people are living in teepees and mud huts. Okay, give me a frickin' break. Okay, here's a beautiful painting of a cathedral. And they also had by far the most sophisticated painting in Europe. This is Karl Schinkel, the German guy in 1813. He painted Gothic Cathedral by a River. And Schinkel himself was an architect, so he could do these cathedrals and make them fantastically detailed and realistic. Okay, next is a painting inside a cathedral, and this one is by Llanero Perez Villamil, so the Spanish artist. And you can see how beautiful it is. That's one thing about Catholic churches. They're just magnificent inside. They'll have all these sculptures and paintings and stained glass window and the light coming in from the vault high above with the flying buttresses. So there's a lot of glass windows. And it's just beautiful. It's spectacular. It's sublime. And the Catholic churches are much more beautiful than the Protestant churches. Augustus Welby Pugin, the Catholic architect in England during around 1850, the Catholic revival in England, he said, everything beautiful in the Catholic cathedral and sublime is Catholic. Everything debased and vulgar is Protestant. Okay, the School of Athens by Raphael from 1511, which showed the combination of the great geniuses from ancient Greece combined with Roman architecture placed in the Vatican. And the word for that is syncretic. Syncretic means to take what you learn from other cultures and add them to your own society, so you just keep on improving. And Catholicism is great at that. Catholicism coexisted with paganism for 500 years, from the death of Christ in 30 AD until about 530 AD, Anno Domini. And that's why it has so much great stuff. The ancient Greeks were the greatest geniuses by far of the ancient world. There's nothing even comparison. They believed the universe was rational, like Christianity says the universe is rational, and man could understand it if he would make the effort to study it. And thus they made incredible discussions. They were supremely articulate, and they're incredible. Plus they had to have an aristocratic class who had enough time to study and become educated, which they had. They were able to have an aristocrat class because they did have slavery. All cultures since the beginning of history have had slavery. But we are able to have a leisure class now, so to speak, people with some time to get educated, just because we're more efficient and because we have capitalism. Okay, that's what makes it possible. Okay. Now here is St. Martin of Tours, and the beggar was cold, and he gave him his cloak. And Christianity is very much all about that, that which you do the least of my brethren you do unto me, is what Christ has said. So it's very much supportive and encouraging and charity. I went to a Catholic school. We had all these fund drives and charity fundraisers and, donate food, all kinds of things to help people. And it's good that the kids see that you should help other people. And it makes the world better for everybody. The point is that the Catholic Church cares about poor people. No one else cares about poor people, okay? Most of the modern things that pretend to care about poor people, they're really just a scam. Here was the Dorcas Society, again, another Catholic charity to help the poor. It comes from the Bible, the Acts of the Apostles. Dorcas, who was also called Tabitha, was always doing nice things for people. It honors the saints. Lots of women become saints. It honors the family. It honors mothers and fathers and families. Okay, they had a lot of Mary Magdalene centers also for former women that were prostitutes. Here's Saint Elizabeth of Hungary. You know, she's a daughter of a king, but she wanted to help the poor, giving food to the poor, the charity. Beautiful painting by Emmanuel Leutze there. Here's the wards at St. John's Hospital, painted by Jan Bierblock. And again, the Catholics were the first ones to make hospitals that allowed poor people to go there. And they built the hospital system, they built the charity system, they built the homeless shelter system, they built the university system, the cathedral schools, the younger schools for younger people to learn the Bible and whatnot. They developed metallurgy, the monks, and modern farming methods and rotation of crops and all that sort of stuff. Later on, a typical story is, the Jesuit priest doing astronomy, Gregor Mendel, figuring out, developing the whole field of genetics. Okay, here is Christopher Columbus. He's an Italian guy who was funded by Spain to sail and see the New World. He had the technology. In comparison, the Chinese had some pretty smart guys. A guy named Chang Ho made a boat that was able to sail the ocean. They told him, no, we don't want to sail the ocean. They destroyed the boats and wouldn't let anybody else make them. That's how the Mandarins handled innovation. So that's why the Chinese were backwards, and a little tiny country of Britain kicked their butt in the Opium Wars in 1850 because they were backward, because the Mandarins didn't allow anything to develop. Meanwhile, Britain led the whole world. This tiny little island led the whole world in science and other things. I went to England in around 1980, and I was amazed at how backward and poor it was compared to the USA. Back in 1980, it's much worse now. That's because it had become socialist. When you become socialist, you go into poverty. Before that, it used to be the richest place in the whole world. But anyways, again, out of a Catholic country, you got Christopher Columbus, Italy and Spain, sailing around the world, discovering the New World. And the New World, they were not immigrants, they were settlers. Immigrants go to a place that's already built, they just move into an established place. Settlers go to a place that's primitive and backward and not yet settled, not yet civilized. And that's what Christopher Columbus did, and the Spaniards, and later the Pilgrims. So anyways, I think that's all I got for today, and we're moving towards more and more advanced science. I hope you find it helpful. Yeah, we'll leave it at that for today.